Welcome to Talking Kootenay Books. My name is Keith Powell. I'm your host. Today our guest is Ross Peck. Ross is from Skookumchuck. And Ross, you've put together a very intriguing book, and congratulations on all the work you put into it. So it's called Keeping the Books. It's a bit of a family memoir, but it really gives a really nice feel to finding out what your family background was all about, and just give us a little bit of an idea where the story took place.
Well, it's mainly focused in the northeast part of BC. My father and mother were guide outfitters, and I'm a retired guide outfitter. I've been out of the business now for 20 years, so I don't know whether that counts or not. But it's basically the story of my mother's life in that part of the world.
Okay, so when you say Peace River country, specifically?
Well, people would recognize Fort St. John, Dawson Creek. I was born in Dawson Creek. My mother and father actually had a lodge on the Alaska Highway at mile 200 at a place called Trutch. So that's sort of the first 13 years of my life was. But the book actually goes quite a bit farther back and to some of my mother's roots, and then continues on throughout her life.
Right. So it is a story of your mother and your family. How is it that you were able to put so much of that information together? You've got a great selection and array of photos in the book. They tell a great story in themselves. How did you gather all that information?
Well, it's probably 10 years ago now. I used to do a few talks for the local history clubs up there, kind of as fundraisers and whatever, and someone asked me to speak on my mother's family. And I got asking her, and she says, well, I have a few things. Well, it turns out she'd saved everything. She'd saved her elementary school report cards. She saved the letters, actually the letter she proposed to my father, and she actually saved things like that. Business records, photo records. So when we moved down here, I had 14 bankers boxes full of stuff. And then COVID hit, weren't getting out much. I decided to dig into that, and this is the result.
Okay. So your mother literally kept the books.
Yeah, well, she started out as a school teacher, and then she actually joined the Air Force during the war. And she took bookkeeping and accounting training, so throughout the rest of her life, all the family businesses and whatever, she made sure the bills were paid and the accounts were up to date and whatever, and hence the name Keeping the Books, and it's basically the life and times of a Peace River homesteader's daughter.
Right. So it gives a really nice perspective of that country, the era, the time, the things, some of the challenges that your family faced over the years. So you're in Skookumchuck. That's a long ways from the Peace River country. What brought you to Skookumchuck?
Well, without getting too political, my wife and I claim we're Site C refugees. So we had land, family land, and our own land on the Peace River, and it was going to be impacted by the proposed Site C dam. And so we fought it as long as we could. It's actually 4 generations of my family have been dealing with BC Hydro, and you think we'd have learned somewhere along the line that it was a fruitless task, but eventually we decided it was time to move, and found this acreage in Skookumchuck that we really like, and moved down here, and here we are.
So you say 4 generations of your family. Is that as a result of the various dams and the flooding that they did?
Yeah, so my mother's parents had land that would be flooded by the what's called the Williston Reservoir now, W.A.C. Bennett Dam. And then both sides of my family were actually impacted. They had recreational property up there. My other grandparents were trappers. Their trap line was affected. And then my parents were actually the first deeded land above the proposed Site C reservoir. And so my mother dealt with that for many years, passed it on to us, and my nephew now has been involved. And so after 13 years of negotiation dealing with Hydro, we finally decided that we may as well settle, because the only people that are getting rich out of it were the lawyers. So.
Right, yeah. So your nephew continues to look after some of the land?
Yeah, my nephew lives on the land, farms the land, raises quality mountain horses, which is something I used to do, and it isn't too much of a paying proposition, but it kind of keeps their hand in it, so to speak.
Right.
So.
Good. So extensive writing and research on your part. Sort of what moment was it that you said, there's a book here, or I should put this together?
Well, basically, I started to go through it, and I realized that it was there's enough material there that supported each other. So things like the stories often had a corresponding picture to support it, or the pictures had a corresponding story to support it. So I got matching those all up, and originally just had a unorganized piece, and then when I thought about getting it published, I tried to organize it kind of chronologically into chapters. It doesn't quite all flow that way because you have to go back and forth sometimes, but all of a sudden I got 232 pages of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, I had the privilege of working with you on the book, and you had it very organized. I commend you for that, and yet fitting all the pictures in and trying to sync them with the copy and so forth was a real challenge. But I think I'm pleased with the way it came out, and I think you ended up with a really nice looking product and a good book. What has been the reaction? I know you've had a month or two now to get the book out into the public, and you've done a little bit of touring and promotion and that kind of thing. What has been the reaction?
Yeah, well, talking about touring, we did go to the Peace River country because we knew there'd be interest up there. And I gave 2 public presentations. I think there was over 150 people that came out to those. I gave a little PowerPoint and whatever, and a number of them bought the book. And now I'm getting these emails saying, really enjoyed it. It brings back memories of my family or whatever. I should do this for my family. Various really good positive responses. But not only there, a lady in Creston sort of read it, and she talks about great memories, tears, laughter, all that sort of stuff. One of the books has already even made it all the way to California. Okay. And a California reader said he couldn't put it down. He read it in one sitting. So.
Good. Well, that's really positive to hear that. That must make you feel good, because I know you put a lot of time and effort and work into the book. When you were doing your research, did you come across anything that just sort of like surprised you or that you hadn't expected?
Well, one thing I did find is, I think I mentioned it earlier, is my mother's marriage proposal to my dad. My father's version was, well, he said, "Old girl, it's the last chance for both of us." But mother actually was on her way to start the first school in Haines Junction in the Yukon. And my father, being a guide outfitter, was out in the hills. And so she wrote him a note, and she kept it and said, "It's okay with me if you're going to want to tell your friends is that we're going to be married when I'm finished in the Yukon," sort of thing. And sure enough, he showed up there in June. They were married in the old log church in Whitehorse, and journeyed down the road to the lodge on the Alaska Highway, and they were there for the next 13 years. The family came along. Mother thought she'd just help with the book. She ended up being a short order cook, a gas jockey. She got into a lot more than she thought she was going to be, but it worked out good. They were a good partnership.
Right. Well, I have to say, the impression I got of your mother was she's pretty dynamic and quite adventurous. It didn't seem like many things slowed her down. So, and she was very connected to her community as well. So, do you want to just talk a little bit about some of the things that maybe you admired about your mother's tenacity?
Well, it goes right back to the keeping of the books. Yeah. She always made sure the bills were paid, and myself probably take after my father a little more. You know, you'd make a deal and then you'd kind of forget about it. Mother would have it all down in black and white. Father was a horse trader, fur buyer, dealt with interesting folks, let's say, and you know, often his word was what they went by, and Mother said, make sure, well, we have to have a contract for that. And so she kept a lot of those early records and that sort of stuff of those deals, so we were able to look at them. So,
you know, the one thing I admire about the book is, you know, you've placed throughout the book various mementos from times. I'm thinking of even like a certificate from the, I think it was the steamship line or the train, CPR train or CN train, and those are kind of mementos that I'm sure have significance and memory, special memories to your family. Did it feel good to, you know, uncover some of those? Yeah.
So, for example, you know, they wouldn't have. She went overseas when she was in the Air Force, And the legacy of that, we have the menus from the ship on the way over. She went over with returning prisoners of war and that sort of thing. When she was stationed in London, I think the armed forces either got to go to the plays for free or at quite a reduced cost. She went to all these theaters, but she kept the waybills of the theaters and whatever, and so those were all kept in her collection. I was able to reproduce a number of those. My grandfather's homestead certificate, which he filed in 1928, some of those real personal things was really nice to be able to show them out to the public. So.
Right. Yeah, those are very treasured memories and valuable. And I think it really adds to the book because it really gives the reader a grasp as to what era we're talking about and the things that were going on. Let's just go back a little bit earlier. You talked about your grandfather and some of your early times. Let's just explore some of your early heritage. How did your family end up in Canada, in the Peace River? Can you give us a bit of a snapshot there?
Yeah, well, my maternal grandmother, she was actually Canadian. Her parents came to Vancouver. They were Irish extraction. Came to Vancouver in the late 1800s when Vancouver was just starting to emerge as the trade center for the Western Canada. The railroad had just got in there. I think there were 17,000 people in Vancouver when they showed up. And he ended up being quite involved. He was on the Vancouver School Board. He was on the group that founded the Vancouver General Hospital. And for 15 years, he actually ran the juvenile reform school out at Point Grey there. Whereas my maternal grandfather was an American true and true. I think he might even had relatives that came over on the Mayflower.
Oh, really?
But he ended up in northern Idaho and eventually got across the border and worked in Phoenix. So Phoenix, for those that don't know it, is an abandoned mining town just out of Greenwood. Right. So my grandmother trained as a nurse, and she was up there nursing. As the First World War started, there was a big demand for copper, and so they were Phoenix was going gangbusters then, and so they met there, decided to get married, and but right in the middle of that, the U.S. Went to war, and so I think I don't have it in front of me, but early April, U.S. joined. A few days later, my grandfather joined the forces, and the week after that, they got married. And then he went overseas for 2 years. So my grandmother hung in there, but when after the First World War, and of course the U.S. was Army of Occupation for a while, so it wasn't until 1919 that they all got back together as a family. And then they had 4 kids in fairly quick succession. And
they were in Prince, or they were in Peace River at that
No,
point?
They were still actually they gravitated up to Lake Chelan in Washington State.
Oh, okay.
But grandfather he always wanted to be a farmer. And he went up to the Peace River country in 1927 and looked at the crops and whatever, and homesteading was still available there, and so he went home and convinced the family that that's what they should do. So in 1928, they packed up in an old truck. They actually camperized the old truck, put a cook stove in the back and bedding in the back, started up the road with 3 of the 4 kids in the front with Grandpa, Grandma and the baby in the back, and a dog named Haig. Haig was named after the general in the First World War, if you may remember. And he rode on the running boards.
Okay.
And one time they looked down and here Haig was gone. So they backtracked, and here comes Haig up the road, limping away or whatever, but he was headed in the right direction. So after that, he also rode with the kids in the front, sort of thing. And but they said he just couldn't afford to lose Haig. He was such a good dog with the kids, and that he was. So.
Oh, that's cool. So, so they ended up in the Peace River country. That would have been late 20s, kind of thing.
1928, they filed on the land, and a number of provisions they got title of it. But by the early 30s, they had a productive farm going there. But of course, the Depression hit. And so they had no market, even though they had granaries full of grain. They had lots of food, and their Vancouver relatives would send them up the necessities of life, like books. And one of the stories was they sent up, I used to go to Woodward's and buy all this care packages and send them up. And then one of these care packages was dates. And so Grandma had cooked up date squares or matrimonial cake, and one of the hired hands on the farm who was helping break the land cornered my grandfather. They all went out for a smoke afterwards, and he said, "You're going to have to stop that wife from making such expensive desserts," he said, "but I really do like that matrimony," he says.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, lots of great memories. So your mother passed away when?
2017, so she, I think she spent 89 years of her life in the Peace River country. She came up there at 7, so.
Wow. And what was her impression of the country? Did she warm to it? Like, was she really comfortable in that setting?
Yes, and she was a Peace River pioneer, and she was always very interested in what was going on. So even in later years when she couldn't drive, on Sunday drives, she'd go out and she'd say, "Well, look at so-and-so's crop. They must have got it in early. It's really looking good, and they should be cutting that hay now and whatever." And that was made her days in her later years, sort of thing.
She seemed to have a lot of friends, just reading the book, involved in a lot of community groups and that kind of thing. Just talk a little bit about her connection to the community.
Yeah, well, one thing that she inherited from her family was a love of cards. So she was a great bridge player, and when she slowed down a little bit, she slowed down so she could play more bridge. So she was involved in 3 or 4 bridge clubs a week playing, and she played in the summer games and various things like that. Very involved in the church, was the secretary of the church society and whatever, and a great supporter of the local museum. Actually, one of the things my mother had for years was a native handicrafts shop. So she'd buy and sell mucklucks, moccasins, tan moose hides, and whatever. And that building, that log building that she used as a store, is actually now part of the Fort St. John Museum.
Oh, cool. Well, that must warm your heart.
Yeah, it really is to be able to see that, and I think she would really appreciate that, knowing that she's remembered that way.
So we've made many references to your father and your mother, but we haven't actually said their names. So who are we talking about?
We're talking Don and Eileen Peck,
Okay.
and Eileen's maiden name was Darnell.
Yeah.
But the Pecks are sort of an infamous name in the north, and in Creston too. I have relatives in Creston. But my father was involved in a number of things I'm not sure my mother really approved of, but one of them was the rodeo business. He had a rodeo stock contracting business with my brother for a number of years. My sister was Canadian Rookie of the Year in the barrel racing, whatever, and both my father and my kid sister we lost prematurely, which was quite a challenge for my mother, but she turned around and kept all the family interests, ranch and farm and everything going, and managed to get it all under control.
How many were in your family?
There was 4, yeah. Right. So I'm the eldest. I had 2 sisters and a brother.
Right. So let's just talk a little bit about the research that you did, and did you access some of the museum, or did you already have? I know you said you had 14 boxes. Did you have to go to any other sources to bring in that information?
Yeah, and I even got into the 21st century or whatever, did a little museum. So you can find things like when my grandparents crossed the border, you can find those custom things online or whatever. Fort St. John Museum especially was quite helpful, going through all the early newspapers and whatever. So my grandfather was a great fisherman, and so it was a newsworthy item when my grandfather and the local doctor and whatever came back from a fishing trip with a big string of rainbow trout, and that was in the local papers. So I had assistants digging stuff like that out. So.
Right, and that adds that personal touch to the story. So Ross, why do you think it's really important to sort of tabulate this information, remember it, record it, write it down, turn it into a book? What is the motivation to do that?
Well, first of all, it's an opportunity to do something like that. It's something that I don't think, I don't know how the next generation will handle that. And, days of social media and sort of instant flashes or whatever, we don't have that written and photographic record a lot of the times and whatever. But it just allows you to show the character of some of those people who kind of built our province and built our communities and whatever. How they did it with minimal support in a lot of ways. My grandmother talks about homesteading on the farm, and of course the Peace River has those long days, and so they'd be up to 11:30 midnight burning brush piles and whatever, and then they'd stop and have a cup of coffee before they went to bed. And she said, you know, that never really hurt us. She said that some of the best days of our lives were those hard-working days on the homestead, and it really shows the character and mettle of those people.
You have to admire their persistence and tenacity, and that, you know, it wasn't an easy life in many instances, but it seemed to me, reading through, it was a good life. Like they really appreciated what they had.
Well, and there was opportunities there. So when my mother returned from normal school, was 1941. She went to normal school, so Pearl Harbor happened there, and that stimulated the building of the Alaska Highway. So she returned to Fort St. John along with 10,000 construction and soldiers building the Alaska Highway. So she had a pretty interesting young life there. And but my grandfather took advantage of that, and he actually started a bus service on the Alaska Highway from Dawson Creek to Fort St. John, later on to Hudson Hope. And but just to show the type of days, often he'd carry the mail, and he'd also carry the bank deposits for the Bank of Commerce. So he'd get back to Fort St. John when the banks were closed, but with this big bundle of money. So he'd just throw it in the washing machine on the porch. The next morning they'd pick it up and take it into the bank, and no one was really worried about that. And, you know, and just the difference from those days and now. So.
Right. Yeah. So it's a different era, different times, but hardy people. They seem to.
Well, they worked hard, but they also recreated hard.
Yeah, they seem to enjoy themselves as well.
So, as I mentioned, my grandfather had a place now under Williston Reservoir, but he'd go up there once he retired every summer, fish, play cards. If you played bridge in Ponoka and were a fly fisherman, you had a standing invite. And he'd go up in the spring and spend all summer there and come down with the leaves in the fall, as he would say.
Yeah. So do you miss that lifestyle? Or has the Kootenay lifestyle lived up to your expectation? Or?
Well, the world has changed. There's no question about that. I was exposed to a fairly privileged wilderness lifestyle, my parents being guide outfitters and whatever. But, you know, we live at the end of a maintained road next to a stream full of cutthroat trout, white-tailed deer wandering through the yard, and berry picking. I won't tell where my good huckleberry patches are, but they're within an hour of home, sort of thing. And so a lot of those things that we really, and my parents no doubt really enjoyed, and we really have the opportunity to enjoy them now too. So.
Right. So what's the future hold, Ross? Did you exhaust your 14 books, or is there more information there that you'd like to glean? Or
well, we get over this little marketing hiccup, and my goal in my marketing is to try and raise enough money to pay for the printing and publishing costs. But you know, I spent close to 10, 12 years on the Hudson Hope Museum Board, and did a lot of research on some of the early pioneers, guides and folk families in that part of the world. I've got a number of draft documents hidden somewhere on my computer. I don't know whether I can find them all anymore, but I like to work on those. I've worked on a couple of history articles. I've got one ready to go to press on John Fannin, who was he was actually an overlander in 1860, part of that group, McKimmick Overlanders. But he actually was a taxidermist and became the first curator of the BC Provincial Museum. And I've done a really extensive life story on him, and I'm just about ready to go to publication with that. So there's a few projects stewing around the woodpile.
Oh, good. So there never ends of good stories. So yeah, capture those as well. So just before we wrap up, again, let's just go back and revisit. You've already talked about it, but would you encourage others to maybe delve into their past and record some of that information?
Yeah, well, some people in the Kootenays may remember the name Ray DeMarche, who was a wildlife biologist here, and his brother Dennis actually got a copy of the book. And he said it stimulated me to really do something with my family history. And I was thinking, I'd really like to know the DeMarche family story. And so a number of people have said it really has them thinking about their early days and whatever. So I'm pleased to be able to do that.
Yeah, good inspiration for others. So yeah, no, I think it's important that we capture that information, because stories that you've got in Keeping the Books and other local history books, if you don't capture those stories, if you don't get that information down, it's gone. It's easy to lose. And like you say, we live in a bit of a unique period in that we do have access to all those resources right now, and we can capture that history. I do worry, like you do, about the future. How a lot of that information is just not being preserved.
Yeah, well, I find, I was still able to go back to my aunt. So who are the people in my mother's bridge club? And she was able to identify them to me. Looking at the pictures, I would know 2 or 3 of them, but so we still have a few of those links there, but they're disappearing quite fast, right? And people used to save pictures, but they used to write on them. And nowadays, if you may have a digital image, which comes up on your iPhone every once in a while, and they put it all together for you, but in 20 years, are you going to know who those people were in the pictures and what they were doing? So,
yeah, different times for sure. Well, congratulations, Ross. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and also to work with you on publishing Keeping the Books. It's a fascinating book. I think people will really enjoy reading it throughout the Kootenays as well as the Peace River country, and keep promoting it, keep getting the message out that there's a story here that I think they'll really appreciate.
Well, and thank you, Keith. I know I learned a lot, and I think maybe you learned a little bit in the process as well. So the next project won't be quite as interesting in some aspects.
Yeah, well, in publishing, you learn something every day. Right. So, yeah, it keeps it interesting. Well, thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. Yeah. This has been Talking Kootenay Books, and my name is Keith Powell.